Yo, what's up? What's good, yuddy, y'all? It's your boy Remo, back with another video. In this video, I want to talk about the tenant that I had that looked just like Claudia Marie. If y'all know who Claudia Marie is, then you know. If you know, you know. But yeah, this chick looked just like Claudia Marie. Some people would say she looked like a thick Marilyn Monroe. Like my neighbor down the street told me that she looked like Marilyn Monroe. She had that bleach blonde hair, and she wore a lot of makeup, and her skin was white because she was from Canada. She was Canadian, so her skin was pale, if you will. I mean, she didn't have no kind of tan. It was extremely white, but it looked good. She looked great. She looked wonderful. I thought she had on makeup the first time I met her. I thought she had makeup, and she said, no, this is her natural skin color. She need a tan. I said, no, you don't. I said, you look just fine. But yeah, she was a cool tenant, and she kept her house nice and clean. She had a daughter who was in college, so I think her daughter was maybe at the time maybe 20, 21 at the most. You know, yeah, when she first moved in, everything was cool. Everything. I hardly ever saw her for the first 2 months, but the first 2 weeks that she was there, she was asking me about the locks. The locks, like the first 2 weeks, every time she saw me, she was asking me about the locks, and I'm like, yo, I just changed the locks. She was like, you sure nobody else has a key? I said, other than me, I'm sure. I just bought these locks. I said, you're good. Why? And she said, oh, I'm not. I don't know if I'm comfortable. She said, I don't want anyone just walking in my house. And I said, well, if you want to change the locks, you feel free to change them. I said, but if something happens, and God forbid, if I have to do a welfare check, I wouldn't be able to get in. I said the police would have to be called, and they will have to get in. I wouldn't be able to, get in or whatever. And she said, oh, that's fine. If the police come, they come, and they'll be able to get into my house. So she basically was saying she didn't want nobody, including me, the landlord, to have a key to her apartment to enter at any time. And I said, okay, she's a female, single female with a daughter. I said, okay, all right, fine. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. I just want you to feel comfortable. She was a good looking chick. Her daughter was good looking too. You know what I'm saying? So, I wanted my tenants to feel comfortable and safe. So she went and bought the locks, and then she knocked on my door asking me to change them. And I said, look, I just put new locks on it before you moved in. I said, I'm not about to put the new locks you just bought because you don't feel safe. I said, that's on you. If you want to change them, that's on you. I said, the locks that I put on, when you take them off, give them back to me. You know what I mean? And she said, okay. So long story short, she had some dude come and change the locks. She gave me back the ones I had just put on there, like she said, which was cool. She gave me back the keys. Fine, okay, no big deal. And then a couple days later, I saw her. She said, "You're not upset with me, are you?" She's like, "I just want to feel safe. I want me and my daughter to feel safe." I said, "Yeah, you all right? You good?" I said, "No big deal. I want you to feel safe." So, come to find out, she was a nudist. This is how I found out, y'all, because when I would go over there to collect the rent, she would always want me to come over there to get the rent. She couldn't bring it over to me. I mean, we live right next door. I mean, I don't have a problem going next door, but damn, man, like, you would think she would have her daughter drop it off to me, or her, she'll do it herself or something. But I had to go next door, which wasn't a problem. It's just it was a problem, but it wasn't a problem. So I would go over there, knock on the door, and she would open the door, and I would only see her eyes. Like, she'll be like this. Hold on, like, you could only see her eyes. Like, she had the chain on the door talking to me. Like, she didn't want to show from the nose down. And then when she would hand me the money, she'll put it in an envelope and hand it to me out the door, like, almost like she didn't want me to see something. Well, she didn't want me to see a few things. So I'm like, damn, why is this chick always, every time I would go over there, to ask her a question, she would always just open the door slightly and peek out the door like she was hiding something. So I'm like, man, this chick is weird. But I seen a lot worse tenants, so I wasn't really worried about it. I just filed it in the back of my mind. Okay, this chick is weird, but whatever. One day I was doing some yard work. I got up early in the morning to do some yard work. I think I was pulling weed. Yeah, I was pulling weeds to plant my garden, and I was picking up trash around the house, and so I noticed her basement light was on, and like you could walk by her basement and look down and like see the basement floor. You can see the washing machine, like especially if her light is on and it's dark outside, you can clearly see in the basement. And it was kind of dark that morning. I got up at like 6 in the morning to do this, and I'm picking up trash, and I look in her basement. I saw the light was on, and I saw a shadow. I was like, I know I'm not seeing anything. So I looked, and I saw her doing laundry. I saw her ankles, and I noticed she was in the basement barefoot. I'm like, damn, why the hell would somebody go in the basement barefoot? Like, that's a no-no. You don't go in the basement. You walk around your house barefoot, but who goes into their basement? Who goes into their cellar barefoot? And so I ain't paid no attention. I said, okay, she down there doing laundry barefoot. So I'm picking up the trash. Do. I walk back. I circle back, and I walk past the basement window again, and I look. She was butt ass naked doing laundry, and she looked just like Claudia Marie, like the way Claudia Marie looked back in like 2017, 2018, when she was younger. That's how this chick looked. And like I said, she was Canadian. You know what I mean? She had that pretty white skin. She almost looked like Snow White, if you will. Yeah, she had that beautiful white skin. She had that bleached blonde hair. Come to find out, Marilyn Monroe was her favorite actress. That's what she was inspired to look like. I found that out later on when she moved, because she had a bunch of Marilyn Monroe posters and flyers and memorabilia. But yeah, she was down there butt naked doing laundry, and I'm looking. I'm like, oh shit! And I didn't want her to see me because I didn't want her to think I was a peeping tom. I just so happened to be walking by, like, And she had some huge knockers, some huge natural knockers, just like Claudia Marie. And I told you I have this canny ability to tell you exactly who somebody looked like. If y'all would have saw this chick, 80% of y'all would have said, yeah, she looked just like a younger version of Claudia Marie. The other 20% would be like, yo, she kind of looked like a thick Marilyn Monroe. But either or, she looked just like Claudia Marie. You know what I mean? Because I think Claudia Marie was like imitating Marilyn Monroe to a degree. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, this chick was in the basement, bucket naked. That's what we used to call it back in the days, bucket naked. Some people would say buck naked. So I hurried up and like disappeared. I didn't want her to see me. You know what I mean? I'm outside cleaning up the yard. Yeah, a couple days after that, she came over to my house with a long T-shirt on, again barefoot, asking to talk to me about something. T-shirt. She had a long New York Mets T-shirt on with no bra on underneath, and them knockers was just hanging, and them you can see her nipples. Her nipples was like eyes, just staring at me, and I'm talking to her, trying not to look at her nipples, talking to her. She knew what she was doing. I don't know if she was drinking or what. She was like, yeah. She said people been coming to her house all hours of the night. That's what it was. But she was just apologizing for people knocking on her door in the middle of the night. And I'm like, yo, I never heard nobody knocking on your door. I never seen anything. I said, but she said, oh no, I'm just apologizing in advance. She said, because I don't want to disturb you. She was just rambling on and on and on, and I'm just going along with it, just trying to make her feel comfortable. It was obvious that she was drunk or high, or so I think I thought she was drunk, but I'm gonna get into that a little bit later. So I didn't see her for a couple of months. She only stayed for about a year. I would only see her once in a while. I'll hear her every day, but I would only see her, once a month when I'm going over there to get the rent. And then like the last couple of months she stayed there, her daughter was bringing the rent over to me. So, one day I'm laying in the bed and I smell paint thinner. I'm like, damn, is she over there painting? I ain't paying no mind. Next day, same thing, paint thinner. Around the same time every morning, I would wake up to paint thinner, and like these walls are only but so thick. I mean, you could, like if somebody's like, I could smell that someone's cooking next door. I could smell that they're cooking bacon or that they're frying chicken or something like that. And paint thinner is strong. If somebody's next door using that shit, you can smell it. So I'm like, damn, okay, whatever. So I asked her daughter, are y'all painting anything over there? She was like, oh no. She said, my mom was doing her nails. And she said, I'm going back to New York City. And she was like, just keep an eye out for my mom's ex or what. I said, it ain't my job to keep an eye. She was like, he likes to come over in the middle of the night. And I said, oh, so that's what she was talking about. She said, yeah, okay. I said, all right, whatever. I said, as long as he don't come on my side, we good. Whatever happens over there, happens over there. Don't bring that shit over here. So, long story short, every time I would leave to go to work in the afternoon, I would see a weirdo on her porch, either smoking a cigarette or just sitting there. You know, it was always a different homeless looking mofo over there. But hey, that's her company. It ain't my job to investigate her company. You know what I'm saying? I got my own problems. That's her side. Whatever happens over there stays over there. Don't bring it over here. So all the while, I'm still smelling paint thinner. I'm like, what the hell is that smell? And I said, when I see Claudia Marie, I'm gonna ask her. So one day I was taking out the trash, and I noticed her trash was overflowing. You know, so I'm like, damn, is she ever gonna take this trash to the curb? So something told me to just pull it to the curb. So I pulled her trash can to the curb, and I noticed she had bags of trash on the ground. So I just put them in the trash can for her. And when I opened the lid, I noticed that she had a bag full of empty cough medicine, like empty like allergy pills, allergy pill boxes. Like Benadryl and Sudafed and all that. I mean, she had like 50 or 60 empty boxes of medicine. I'm like, what the hell is she doing with all this medicine? And I'm thinking she must work at a hospital, but I'm like, damn, why she got all these empty boxes of allergy and cough medicine? It just didn't make no sense. And I'm like, what the hell? So I didn't think nothing of it. I just filed it in the back of my mind and, wheeled the trash can to the curb. So one day she came over to my house again. This time she had on flip-flops, and she looked bad. She was crying. She was like, she said, my boyfriend don't want to be with me. She said, I already went through a divorce, and I'm like, what the hell you want me to do? And she said, oh yeah, the guy that you saw on my porch smoking a cigarette, that was my husband, and the other guy you saw was my boyfriend. And I'm like, what this got to do with me? She just was very emotional, and I'm like, okay, this chick got to stop coming over to my house, with these emotions, with and being drunk or whatever. So she went on about her business. About a month later, her daughter came over and told me that they was about to move. And I said, everything all right? And she was like, yeah, my mom's in rehab. And I said, rehab? She said, yeah, she was high off doing meth and drinking. I was like, what? She was like, yeah. She said, I'm sorry. I said, hey. She said, the rent is paid for this. But I said, yeah, don't even worry about it. Y'all good. I said, well, if you gonna move, hey, just let me know. She was like, yeah, we'll be moving, blah, blah, blah. So she moved. And so when I went over there to clean up, it looked like this chick, come to find out, she was running a meth lab over there. That explains that paint thinner smell. It looked like she was running a pharmacy in the kitchen. She had like sheets on the kitchen doors, like the kitchen entrance point, like it was like a sheet over the door. You know what I mean? And I guess she was using all that cough medicine and allergy medicine to make meth. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I don't know. If y'all know, if y'all heard about that before, address it in the comments. Leave it in the comments section. And so I called the police. And the police came over and was like, yeah, it looked like somebody was running a meth lab, but, there's no evidence. We can't charge nobody with anything. And she doesn't live here anymore and blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, And so maybe like a couple days ago, this is what made me do this story, y'all, because a couple days ago, I saw Claudia Marie. She's a DoorDash deliverer now. And she looks old, and she looked bad. I'm like, damn, this was just like 4 years ago. 4 years ago, she looked, like a sweet Southern belle, or sweet Canadian belle, I should say. She looked like Marilyn Monroe 4 years ago. Now, she looks like Marilyn Monroe. She got wrinkles all in her face. I mean, she still got those huge knockers, but she aged in dog years. 7, 14, 21, 20. She aged 28 years in 4 years. I was like, damn. I said, yo, you look different. She said, yeah, I know. Even her voice sound raspy. She's like, yeah, I know. She said, I figured you still own this house. She was like, yeah, how's everything going? I was like, yeah, yo. She sounded horrible. She looked horrible. I mean, stay away from drugs, kids. She looked horrible. I mean, she needs an upgrade, like a facelift and an interior touch-up, all rolled up in one, y'all. She looked horrible. So the moral of the story is stay off of drugs. I don't know if she had. I didn't look in her mouth. Like they say meth mess up your teeth too. It was so quick. Like I was just looking all up and down. Trying to figure out where did we go wrong. Yo, it is what it is, y'all. Man, that was crazy, man. The story about Claudia Marie that was doing meth. And you know what's funny? The real Claudia Marie, she's not aging gracefully. Like I saw her recently, and she aged. I was like, damn. Do everybody that try to look like Marilyn Monroe end up with this? End up looking like this? Is this the Marilyn Monroe curse or something? I don't know, y'all. I don't know. Like, share, subscribe, y'all. All right.